Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Mandy and I like to talk about makeup panning, nail polish, and things in my real life. Today I am going to share with you the things that have been on my radar, things I've been consuming over the last month, what I've been into. So if you are interested in finding out the things I've watched, the books I've read, the food or drink or that I have consumed over the last month, then stay tuned. Alright, this is what I affectionately call what I'm into, and this is for November 2024. If you're watching this sometime in the future, my name is Mandy, and yeah, this month I have not been, well, I've been reading a lot, but not any fiction. But I have watched a lot of visual content. So let's start with that because that is where the bulk of this information is going to be coming from. First off, I want to start with the biggest thing is on Netflix. I watched The Mayfair Witches, which if you've been around here for a while, or if you're new, I will let you know. Earlier this year, I read the first book in the Mayfair Witches series called Witching Hour by Anne Rice, and the Mayfair Witches series is based on that book. But the Netflix story, or whoever originally produced it, this series diverges from the story in the book so much that I was physically upset that it's almost a completely different story and it is not the story that is portrayed in the book. I mean, there's some things that, you can live with, like the casting of the main character was different than the description of the character in the book. But then two of the main characters in the book were thrown out and combined sort of into one character in the series, and it was a completely different dynamic. There were things in the series that were made up that were not in the book at all. There are people in the book who are condensed, people who are cut out. A lot of things were cut out because it is a very long book. And I understand condensing things into a format that is easier to digest, in a visual platform. But the way the story was treated and everything, it is a completely different story. So if you watched the Mayfair Witches series, I want to let you know that the book is very different. It's a lot longer, but the characters are different. The settings are the same, but different. Yeah, I was very upset and disappointed. And, yeah, I don't recommend the series. I don't recommend watching the series. The books, I do recommend if you have the patience to read through very long books with long historical flashbacks. So, I recommend the Mayfair Witches series. There's The Witching Hour is the first book. The second book is Lasher, which I finished last month, which is not even touched on. It's a completely different story than the TV series. So, but yeah, just so you know, completely different. Some of the characters are the same, the places are the same, some of the events are similar, but a completely different vibe, in my opinion. Okay, I've been waiting all month to talk about that. I have posted it in my community pages, so if you don't follow me on my community pages here on YouTube, you can do that. I try and post some updates occasionally when I feel the need. Yeah, okay. I mean, that series compared to the book, just, you go in sometimes expecting a visual representation of a novel to be different or condensed, but it was just yeah. Anyway, moving on. So that was all the only thing I watched on Netflix. Next on Disney, I watched quite a few things. First, for Halloween, I watched the original Hocus Pocus because every year everybody goes on about, oh, Hocus Pocus, yeah, we love it. And I'm like, I watched it years ago when it first came out and didn't think it was that big of a deal. So I was like, I'm gonna rewatch it and see if maybe I'd forgotten. I watched it. I still don't think it's that big of a deal. So it is not one of my favorite movies. Um, but I watched it and I did not think I was thinking of watching the second one and then I went, nah, it's not really worth it. So I did not watch the sequel. But I did shortly follow that with the series Agatha All Along, which I did enjoy. Um, for many reasons, very musical, theatrical, witchy, it's fantasy. I liked it. So I do highly recommend Agatha All Along. I do recommend if you watch it and you haven't watched WandaVision first, I recommend watching WandaVision first, then Agatha All Along. And then finally, toward the end of the month, I think last week, I watched Deadpool and Wolverine because it was there and I am a Wolverine fan and slowly have become a Deadpool fan as well. So I watched that. In that case, if you have not watched Loki season 1 or 2, I recommend watching that before watching Deadpool and Wolverine. That explains some things. Other than that, I really enjoyed it. I did like the ending credits where they went and prospectively looked back on some of the characters from old Marvel movies. I have watched all of the Blade movies, which surprisingly, I mean, not surprisingly, I really enjoyed them. That when I watched them earlier this year or end of last year, um, Ryan Reynolds plays a character in the third Blade movie, so to see him team up with Wesley Snipes, it was very nice. Elektra, I am a Deadpool fan. Not Deadpool, I'm sorry, I'm a Daredevil fan. Um, and seeing Elektra from the movie, kind of, eh. I'm a big Charlie Cox fan from the TV series of Daredevil. And just a shameless plug here. I do have a RedBubble store. It is linked down in the description. I do have one design there that is a Daredevil fan art inspired. So if you are a Daredevil fan as well, go check that out. And if you decide to buy something, I would really appreciate it. So yeah, but I like Daredevil and I like Deadpool. I'm getting so confused because they both start with D. Also, earlier this year, I read both a Daredevil comic and a Deadpool collection comic, which had a crossover with Deadpool and Daredevil. Anyway, and I'm also an X-Men fan. So, that being said, that is what I watched on Disney. And then finally, this month, I went to Prime and I found a series based on first book I finished this year called Bitten by Kelly Armstrong. Since I'd watched Mayfair Witches at the beginning of the month, I figured I would go and follow it up with Bitten because I know that is a book series that I've read the first book of. It is part of the Otherworld series by Kelly Armstrong, and I was very impressed. The Mayfair Witches left a sour note in my mouth for TV adaptations, but Bitten, the first season of Bitten on Prime, followed the book very closely. The characters are cast well. They look like the characters I imagined in the book. With a couple exceptions, but that's okay, you know. The storyline followed the book perfectly. Some of the locations were adapted and, you know, things were changed to make them a little more believable. The only problem I have is like this is set in New York and this is in Toronto and they get their lickety split even when they're like traveling by train or by plane and then they're going to Louisiana and coming back and like travel is not realistic timeline, I don't think, but you know, it's fantasy fiction, so timelines are good. There are 3 seasons of Bitten available on Prime. The first one I did have to pay for, and then the second season was free. And the second season, I'm guessing, takes on the story after the first book into the second book, because I've looked up the second book is called Stolen, and this seems to, the description of that story seems to coincide with what happened in season 2. I decided to watch them all while I had the time and was thinking of it, so season 2 is that, and then there is a third season, which I watched most of. Like the 4th episode, for some reason, you had to pay for, but all the other episodes in the season were free. I don't know what Prime is doing, so I just skipped that episode and watched the recap to find out what happened. I have not finished season 3, I'm still working on it, but it is close to being done, and I'm kind of getting, you know, sad because it's one of those characters that you build a relationship with, and you want the best for them. So, you know, to see the series come to an end, I'm like, but season 3 was originally aired in 2016, so this is not a new series, and there's no hopes of it coming back in the future unless somebody else wants to do it. But all that to say, the first season of Bitten does follow the book Bitten, by Kelly Armstrong very closely, and I really recommend it. So that's everything I've watched. I watched a lot. I also watched a lot of YouTube, but you know, there's all kinds of creators and all kinds of content there. But that's what I watched on the streaming services. Blah. Okay, on to books. So I said I did not read a lot of fiction this month. I decided to kind of do a little personal development, and I started reading some nonfiction Wicca books. Wicca is a natural religion, earth-based religion, and I have this one in my collection, which is called Wicca, A Year and a Day, and it is basically a daily study book. Each day you read a little bit and study the principles talked about in the book. It's by Timothy Roderick. Mine is a little bit warped from water damage, but still usable. I have never made it past like day 26. I am not a practitioner of Wicca. I am just reading this to learn some information I may not know. I do know quite a bit about pagan religion and witchcraft-based practices. So I'm not particularly, yeah, I'm not interested in it completely, but I am reading it. I am combining some of the days because some are reading and practice are quite short and they go together. So I'm working on that. As you can see, I have my bookmark in there. I'm like on day, you know, whatever, 20 something. Secondly, I got on Libby, the digital library app. I got the book, I'll insert a picture here, of Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft. This is also a book that was written in the early 80s, I think, and republished in the early 2000s by Raymond Buckland, and he's one of the leading North American people, and it is about Wicca again. And it focuses a lot on ceremonial and coven magic. I have read this previously, like 20 some years ago, and I checked it out as sort of a refresher and kind of skimmed through a lot of it. I just finished it today, so it is a book complete. I don't recommend it, but you know, if you are new and want to learn a little bit about what the religion of Wicca and ceremonial magic are like, this is something to go into. It touches on a lot of topics to give you information on a lot of things, from healing and crystals and colors and stuff. I don't recommend it, but that's you know, it's a very outdated book as well. So that being said, those are the two things I've mainly worked on. I have one fiction thing I am working on this month, and it is also a library book, but this is a graphic novel. This is Sandman Volume 4, the 30th edition. I think I showed this last month. I have started reading this. I'm about halfway through. Oh, you can't see my bookmark because it's white, but I'm about halfway through. This is called Seasons of Mist. I am a Sandman fan. Stan. I like Sandman. And I enjoyed this series, and I am working on it. So that's all I've been reading. Now let's talk a little bit, just a little bit, about food and drink. Okay, the little bit I want to talk on this month is coffee creamers. Every day I like to start my day with cups of coffee. You know, 1, 2, depending on my mood. And I have been using one creamer regularly. I was going to say religiously, but you know, regularly for the last, I don't know, 6 months, and it is Planet Oat, and I will put a picture of it because I don't have a bottle of it right now because I'm out. It's from Planet Oat. There are 2 flavors I like. They have a coffee cake flavor, which is a nice cinnamon flavor. I may have talked about it previously. And then they also have caramel, which I also enjoy very much. And then I think they have one other flavor, which is French vanilla. Also a very good choice. Those are all oat milk based. I am lactose intolerant, so I tend to go toward those. But recently I was at the store and I discovered Lucerne, which I think is a nationwide brand. I could be wrong. Their creamers are labeled as lactose free. So I picked up this one in hazelnut because I really enjoy hazelnut flavor, and Planet Oat doesn't have a hazelnut flavor. And so far I'm enjoying it. And it is cheaper than the oat milk. It is made with milk product, so if you are milk allergic, I do not recommend it. It has, what is it? Sodium caseinate? Yes, which is a milk derived thing, but it does not apparently contain lactose. And I've been getting along with it fine. And besides being less expensive, they also have a lot of wonderful flavors, a wider selection of flavors. Also, I noticed they have seasonal flavors like peppermint mocha and eggnog. So I'm going to be trying some of those seasonal flavors soon. I picked up hazelnut because it is a good year-round flavor, and I wanted to give it a try and see if it really does go fine with my lactose intolerant stomach, and it does. So that is all I have to talk about for food. So if you enjoyed this little look into my life, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to my channel, do that while you're here. It means a lot to me. And if you can, you know, when you subscribe, you can be notified when I upload videos by hitting that little bell icon. And then these videos will come into your feed every month, and you can see my makeup panning, my nail polish, and my other reading videos and what I'm into. And yeah, I think that's everything. So until my next video, take care of yourselves, stay true to you. I love you no matter who or what you are, and I'll see you next time. Bye!